Thomas Aquinas and Some Speculation on the Origin of the Urantia Book. By David Kantor, December, 2023. Painting, Thomas Aquinas by Sandro Botticelli. Curiosity, rumors, second-hand recollections, and imaginative speculation continue to fuel interest in a topic of widespread interest, the origin of the Urantia book and how it came into existence. While the true story likely will never be known by humans simply because it involves things beyond human knowledge and comprehension, it's possible to amuse ourselves by creating a plausible story from the above elements, combined with information in the Urantia book, as well as the history of Christianity. Emma Christensen, the last of the Contact Commissioners, told me that work on the Revelation began in the Middle Ages. Other apocryphal sources specify the 1200s. From comments in the Urantia book we can reasonably assume that Mashaventa was present on the planet in the capacity of resident governor-general sometime in the High Middle Ages. The High Middle Ages, particularly the 12th century, saw a widespread spiritual awakening across Europe. It was the apex of Christian civilization. There was a desire to know more about Jesus, how to live a Christ-like life. The problem was that with the sketchy biblical account, a Christ-like life meant poverty, suffering, caring for the downtrodden, rejection of material reality, and itinerant preaching. Dissident sects seeking an elevated understanding of Jesus and the Incarnation did so by exploiting older mysticism and personal revelations of various leaders. The result from this sincere seeking was increasing confusion. Church leadership was furious. One dissident sect, the Cathars, seeking to live according to their understanding of the life and teachings of Jesus, saw between 200,000 and 1 million of their followers killed by the Church in the 1200s. Given this situation, we can appreciate the Midwayers petitioning for permission to produce a comprehensive review of the Incarnation, a full story of the life and teachings of Jesus. We can imagine this petition being prepared for Mashaventa, our vicegerent planetary prince, and given to him during his sojourn here as resident governor-general. This petition subsequently not only reached Uversa but the response came in the form of a mandate issued by the Ancients of Days to create the Urantia book. Emma Christensen also said that when the Revelators commented on the Middle Ages origin of the effort, one of the Contact Commissioners asked why it took so long, but the question went unanswered. So let's ask the question again. Just why could it have taken so long? The Urantia book provides a couple of clues. Right off the bat in 0:0.2 the Revelators bemoan being restricted to the use of our circumscribed language when attempting to communicate enlarged concepts and advanced truth. At 93:7.4 a Melchizedek laments the difficulties of perpetuating truth in early times. In the 12th century Gutenberg was still 2 centuries in the future. There are other comments in the book such as, cannot find suitable words, paucity of language, nevertheless I will endeavor to depict. Each of these comments helps us appreciate the challenges presented by primitive languages on a primitive planet. In the 12th century, language would have been an even greater issue than it was in the early 20th century. In the 12th century there were hundreds of dialects spoken throughout Europe. The primary vernaculars of Europe that we know today did not coalesce until after Gutenberg. The English language itself was still evolving from Anglo-Saxon, Germanic, and Old Norse dialects. If the revelation was going to be viable, it would have to be constructed upon concepts which had been formulated by human minds. So there's the problem of culling through all the cultures, dialects and vernaculars of the High Middle Ages, to find concepts which might be used to meet the directives of the Uversa mandate. Here's where our skeleton of speculation begins to acquire a mantle of reality. Thomas Aquinas was a Dominican monk teaching theology and philosophy at the University of Paris. Perhaps the greatest religious genius of the Christian epoch, he wrote Summa Theologica, the summation of theological knowledge, between 1266 and 1273. In it, Thomas posed 512 questions about the nature of reality covering the full range of categories of interest at the time. Here's a basic outline of his work. Existence and the nature of God. The Trinity. Angels. Ethics and moral philosophy. Law and grace. Spiritual values. The Incarnation, life and teachings of Jesus. Sacraments and the Church. Eschatology, the ultimate destiny of individuals, humanity, and the world. In the Summa, each question is followed by a sequence of answers, each taken from a Hebrew, Islamic, Christian, and pagan source, followed by Thomas's own answer conditioned by his personal beliefs, integrated with Aristotle's natural philosophy. The sequence of answers for each question is then complemented by a collection of articles related to the question, articles taken from widespread cross-cultural scientific and academic writings of the time. A total of 3,125 individual articles are thusly incorporated into the Summa. It's a stunning work of scholarship. Here's the point. Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica was the first significant cosmology to appear in Christendom since Augustine's City of God, written a millennium earlier. Not only did the Summa provide a summary of widely scattered 13th-century cosmological concepts, by its very nature it also provided a summary of the residual Melchizedek teachings, at least as they were known in the West and the Near East. So there you have it, the conceptual foundation upon which we can reasonably conjecture that the Urantia book was constructed. But there's more to our question about why it took so long. There were a great number of evolving social, political, linguistic, technological, and religious variables which had to enter into seraphic projections for an optimal time for a soft landing of the revelation in the mortal milieu. In the 12th century, European languages were in flux, and it wasn't until after Gutenberg in the 15th century that the present-day vernaculars coalesced into distinct languages. Over the next 200 years they strengthened and became increasingly established. In addition to the linguistic concerns, there were technological issues. Printing presses were in use 200 years before Gutenberg, but they used characters carved from wood or made from ceramic materials. Gutenberg, a metallurgist who specialized in manufacturing mirrors used to reflect holy light from icons, developed an alloy for making molds that wouldn't melt when molten metal was poured into them for casting. It was his metal movable type that transformed printing. As reusable metal type quickly came into widespread use, the cost of printing fell by 93%. The first book fairs were held and networks of booksellers began to evolve. But printing was still a relatively slow process due to the fact that paper was available only in single sheets. It wasn't until the early 19th century that the critical advance was made. Wood pulp replaced rags for the manufacture of paper. The Fourdrinier press, capable of printing on a continuous roll of paper, came online, first operated by water wheels and then steam. It appeared at the same time that a literate middle class was rising in Europe and America. Newspapers appeared. Education, journalism, and communication were transformed. Book fairs and bookseller networks became international in reach. So this brings us into the early 20th century, when the revelation actually began to be prepared for publication in the English language, subsequently ready for global distribution within a single generation, utilizing the transformative potentials of a global internet, decentralized and safe from the ravages of repression by totalitarian religious or political regimes. While many Urantia book readers treat the text as scripture and view it as a replacement for the Bible, I'd like to suggest that it's more reasonable to view the revelation in a direct line to Thomas Aquinas and back to Augustine. Thus the Urantia book is the third great cosmology of the Christian epoch, supplementing the personal revelations of Augustine and Thomas Aquinas, certainly not a replacement for the Christian Bible. Consciously and publicly positioning the revelation in this manner might go a long way toward preventing hostility from folks wishing to remain married to the Bible. So that's my take on Thomas Aquinas, very likely a reservist given his contribution to the development of Christian thought, his concerns about revitalizing the fundamental truths of the Incarnation, and his work in preparing the groundwork for the fifth epochal revelation.